What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the 500th episode of the Doomcast. I've been doing this for a while, which is crazy for me to think about. So thanks to those of you who've joined me on this journey. Wanted to make this episode less about me, but more about you. So kind of indirectly about me still. I wanted to give you, the viewer, the opportunity to ask any burning questions that you had. Anything deep inside of you that was creating an itching or burning sensation that was just longing to get out. So without any further ado, we're going to get into your questions from me. I'm Dan Umphin, and this is the 500th episode of the Doomcast. All right, first question comes from my friend Morgan Marshall. Who was your favorite Ninja Turtle? I wasn't a huge Turtles fan. My favorite was always Donatello, which I understand wasn't necessarily the popular choice. It really came down to the fact that he does machines, wore purple, and had a bow staff, which definitely appealed to me as anything could be a bow staff on a playground if you found a straight and long enough stick. Sword sticks, a little harder to find. Nunchuck sticks don't exist. Next question, my buddy Phil Colas, a comedian out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, asked, what's your deep cut favorite that you don't tell anybody about? Not a guilty pleasure, but a finished story arc or character, etc., that means a lot to you that you only tell people about if they want a very personal answer. All right, that's a great question that I really had to think about, and probably The Many Deaths of Layla Starr by Ram V and Philippe Andrade. Great magic realism, incredible artwork. I've discussed it before and have a great episode on it. Another good one would be Daniel Warren Johnson's Extremity for the same reasons. The art is incredible, and it's a story that's ultimately about forgiveness and how that ends conflict, but also it's about robots punching monsters. Another is Jonathan Hickman's Shield and Hickman's Gods for Marvel. Both of those involve a deep reinvention of Marvel lore. I love reinventions of lore and lore-heavy books. Shield is so bonkers, I need to do my own episode on it at some point, but it alone makes superhero fantasy characters out of Isaac Newton, Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, which is bonkers. Nikola Tesla turns into a dimension-hopping creature called the Night Machine, which is great. Last one I think I need to shout out to that I frequently recommend to people is an ultra-heady deep cut, James Robinson's Starman from the early 90s. Now, not all of it, as it went on, it did decline, unfortunately, but the first 2 or 3 arcs with Jack Knight dealing with his brother's death and his father's legacy in the Mist and the Shade, and Dr. Phosphorus, it's really one of the most fully imagined and compelling character-driven bits of DC comic storytelling, and I really cherish it, so it's great. James Robinson Starman 2. Get that. Trent Bowman asked, that shirt where and how? He was referring to the X-Men #8 cover. Sadly and embarrassingly, this was a Hot Topic purchase that got me through an Instagram ad, dog. It happens sometimes. Justin Bulver asked me a permutation of a question that I got asked fairly frequently, which is, what's your most valuable comic, action figure, or item in your collection? Yeah, I do have a pretty extensive collection myself. I would say probably at least coming close to #1 as far as a high dollar value book. It's this signed Giant Size X-Men #1, signed by Len Wein. It's in pretty decent shape, but I'd speculate that at least a few, I don't know. I mean, even a 4.5 is probably gonna get a couple thousand, considering it's signed by Len, who has since passed. Anyway, figures are a little harder to guess at because they kind of fluctuate based on demand, as do any collectible. Tends to center around premium versions of characters that are rare or whoever is particularly hot. For example, right now, you know, the X-Men '97 Wolverine, pretty expensive, pretty easy, and I have another one yet, mint in box, that I'm just not gonna sell. I'm just gonna hang on to it because I love the show. And I have one out of box, but they sell for like 80 to 100 bucks if they're in box. the MCU Charlie Cox Daredevil that came out in the giant-sized Man-Thing wave that they had a few years ago. It's probably one of the most expensive because they haven't remade him. He's probably $100 even loose in a lot of cases. Used to be the Magic that I had. Magic in-box used to be like $80 to $100, but they're about to re-release her, so now it's down to like 25 or 30, which is the basic cost of a figure. Cool. On Instagram, a couple people asked me similar questions. Carlito Classico asked, along with my burning questions, I've got some burning pee. Any home remedies? Jaffo Media, aka Jeff35 DM, aka the Altoona Assassin, Jeff Newell asked, what's the address of the clinic for my burning, yearning question? Is there a cream, and is that pus that's running out? Well, it's definitely time to talk about this, and as men of a certain age, I'm sure that many viewers and comics fans, many of us male or people with prostates, could benefit from a quick overview of general male reproductive health and urinary health. The prostate is a gland that sits on the urethra, or P-tube, that can become inflamed and enlarged either with age or a variety of factors, such as poor diet, poor water intake, possibly ergonomic issues like office chairs that are uncomfortable, or bicycle seat positions, or maybe motorcycle seat positions if you're cooler than I am. Additionally, 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed and develop prostate cancer in their lifetime, so it's important for regular screenings via getting your doctor's finger shoved deep in your ass all the way up to the last knuckle, as well as a PSA blood test. However, burning urination is more often than not a urinary tract infection or genital herpes. One of those you can cure just by better water intake. The other one, Jeff, requires an STD test. So maybe you should get out there and quit laying such weird pipe. On YouTube, Hazel's son mentioned, you were one of my favorite creators and I love your content. Congratulations on 500. Well, that's an incredible thing to hear. Thank you very much for the incredible words of support. Really genuinely means a lot. Then I asked, what are your top 5 must-read storylines or 5 favorite single comics issues? I love top 5 lists. I'm gonna answer this, but just know that that top 5 fluctuates probably a lot. So here's what it is currently, as close as I can think of one. All-Star Superman is probably an all-time favorite. Grant Morrison, Frank Quitely. Rick Remender and Jerome Opeña's Uncanny X-Force is start to finish one of the best runs on any X-Men book or X-Men adjacent book ever written. The original Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips' Criminal and Incognito, both of those definitely in the top 5, but I'm gonna just count those as one because I wanna put more in here. Jeff Johns' Justice Society of America JSA run. Also, just incredible classic DC storytelling that renewed my love for comics and got me interested in Golden Age comics. It's like My Hero Academia, but for characters from the 1940s. It's incredible and it was a lot of fun. Kieran Gillen and Dan Moore's Once and Future is a great ride. Also, a retelling of Arthurian legend that twists metaphysics and mind-bending magic into a modern take about how every version of Arthurian legend is somehow valid, but it's also about King Arthur being a frickin' undead vampire lich lord. Also, for what it's worth, despite Warren Ellis's disgrace, there are so many series of his that were incredible and formative to me when I was coming up reading them. His work on the last few issues of X-Men when he turned him into a one-man authority / Christ figure. His work on Planetary with John Cassidy, especially the issue Magic and Loss. Definitely that is one of my top favorite comic issues of all time. Those were really incredible, and it sucks that Warren turned out to be the heartless, manipulative bastard that he was so good at writing, and it makes me very sad, unfortunately. Question from good friend and stand-up comedian Sam Hershock. Here's a question for your 500th episode. There's a fire in your collection room. You can only save 2 items. What are they? That's terrifying. I'm gonna have to say that my number 1 would be that giant size X-Men number 1. Sentimentally though, I think my number 2 would have to be the Alex Ross, Hal Jordan Green Lantern DC Direct figure, just because it was an early gift from Val, my wife, way back in the day. There's probably more valuable things that I could go for, but that's what I'd grab, I think. All right, Sam's second parter was, if that question's a bit too rough, I've got a backup. What piece in your collection is your most prized, and what piece started out meh, but that you've now grown to love? You know, I don't know that it's necessarily meh, but the one that's grown on me the most is probably this, which is Jack Kirby Thor. It's actually the Thor number 132, first appearance of Ego, the Living Planet. Definitely not in the best shape. I don't know that I necessarily love slabbing comics, but I am a fan of preservation. And I got it initially because I was like, hey, Jack Kirby Thor. Didn't even know that it was the first appearance of Ego. Didn't know that there was an early letter from Dave Cockrum, the guy that ended up drawing this almost, well, 10 years later, whatever. In any case, I have a much deeper appreciation of Jack Kirby and his intuitively kinetic panels and covers as time goes on. The motion looks a little weird at first glance. The characters look like they're positioned in such a way that it's not very realistic, but it's actually there to force you to imagine movement rather than be a photographic moment in time, but more an interpretation, an emotional interpretation also of the movement of characters. That's the cool thing about art and visual storytelling, is that you can break things down and create emotional truth out of things that don't look quite perfect. And I guess that's why I love it. Someone with a throwaway YouTube account named Person asked, how do I become as cool as you? You don't. There's like, all right, I'm at a point in my life where I appreciate myself for who I am, but I'm a work in progress, as all of us are. I'm a ball of anxiety that still, instead of staving off that anxiety with constant booze and cigarettes and stupid behavior, I'm now staving it off with excessive exercise, micromanaging my diet, doing the Doomcast, doing comedy. But for real, one good thing that I have learned is that a little bit of minor improvement on a regular basis can push you farther forward than expecting yourself to jump in and do something perfectly. Rather than being paralyzed by fear of imperfections or failure, just a tiny bit of something that you can tweak or improve will help push you forward. It's better to be 10% better at something at the end of the year than being 100% better at it at the end of the year. It's better to be 10% better at the end of the year at any given thing, or even 1% better, than it is to give up on trying to be any better at that, because you're not going to be 100%. Basically, any improvement is better, even if it's incremental. You don't have to be 180. That can be with exercise. It can be with any kind of thing that you want to try and improve.
Hello, Doomcast. Congratulations on 500 episodes. Great job, Dan. And since I have you here, I would like to ask a question. I collected comic books like crazy in the 90s. I still have them. I took a few of them here. I just want to know if these are worth anything at all. I've been schlepping these around for 30 years, so this is just a sampling. All right, we got, of course, X-Men #1. That was issued to every child in America. Probably not. What about this? Savage Dragon, #1. Another terrible #1, Nomad. Look at that. Who cares, right? Is this worth it? Spider-Man 30th anniversary, the hologram covers of those got to be worth something at this point, right? I got, good, perfect. A loose Death of Tony Stark. That's good. If it was worth anything, probably not. Spider-Man 2099 #1. Marvel Holiday Special #1. I'm sure that's worth tons of money. I have probably the entire run of Deathlock. I mean, it just goes on and on. I have hundreds of them. Are they worth anything? Let me know.
Well, thanks, Alex Carter. I appreciate you a lot for sending this in. For those of you who do not know, Alex is the creator and founder and main man at Black Cat Ice Cream in Des Moines, Iowa. Probably one of the best reasons to visit this city if you ever do. Also, longtime co-host of Underground Comedy, 1/3 of the No Sleep podcast, and one of the greatest comedians of this or any other age. Here's the thing, Alex, some of those are actually worth at least a little bit of money. 30 years on, almost all of them are going to fetch at least something if they're in reasonably good condition. Some of them maybe 10 to 15 bucks. That Spider-Man 2099, the green hologram cover 30th anniversary Spider-Man, that's probably worth maybe 30-ish. You know, maybe a little less depending on the shape, but more if they ended up getting graded. The cool thing is the artist who did Nomad, which, yes, unfortunately forgotten series, the artist who drew it lives right here in Des Moines, Iowa, and I know him. S. Clark Hawbacker, really talented, because you look at the art in it, it's mind-blowing. It truly is. And frankly, not a lot stood up to it from the 90s either. Clark did a ton of work in Nomad, and it's awesome, and he regularly is at cons here in Des Moines with a lot of his other artwork available for sale. But he'd definitely sign it. As for the rest of that pile, I'm gonna have to go through it at some point, because if it's got anything in that era of Spider-Man, especially early appearances, first appearances of Carnage or Venom, those can be pretty valuable. It's very odd what can end up being regarded as a key issue and end up appreciating over time. If they ever do a Deathlock movie, yeah, that puppy is probably in mint condition. It's probably, you could sell it for maybe 10 bucks. I don't know. Anyway, thanks to everybody for watching this, and thanks to all of you who have hung on for 500 episodes, or even the last 100 episodes, or even the last 10 or 50. A lot of the early episodes aren't even on this channel anymore. Maybe I'll put them back up someday, but I appreciate all of you for continuing with me down this road, and I'm planning to keep updating. But as I reach this milestone, I kind of realize I need to take a little time to regroup and renew focus. That doesn't mean I'm not doing the Doomcast anymore. I might take about a month to try and get things maybe tweaked, maybe revitalize a little creative energy. When I get back, maybe I'll also have other exciting things to announce as well. Thanks, everybody. This has been a great journey. I really appreciate you. This has been the Doomcast. I'll see you again very soon. Peace.